2025 was a shockingly great year for movies. There were so many incredible films that I genuinely had a difficult time finding the worst movies of the year. But don't worry, I picked out a few. From misguided attempts at franchise building to movies that are disrespectful to the art form. These are my picks for the worst films of 2025. Number 10.
I just have one question.
What did you do last summer?
Back in the late 90s, in the wake of the horror classic Scream, I Know What You Did Last Summer hooked its way into theaters as a cheap imitation. Now, in the 2020s, the Scream franchise has been restarted, with a new trilogy that's quickly floundering. With Blood in the Water, I Know What You Did Last Summer's iconic fisherman has returned, with the catch of the day once again being Karma. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. This might be the most pointless legacy sequel of all time. This reboot of a ripoff is never able to justify its own existence, even if it tries to reel in themes of true crime exploitation and Gen Z shallowness. I Know What You Did Last Summer 4 is so flat and ugly looking, it's almost shot like an episode of Love Island, making it the most bland looking film I've seen in recent memory. More than any other film on this list, I had the hardest time thinking of anything to actually say about I Know What You Did Last Summer. Number 9.
Since when were they red?
2025 was the year superhero movies began to regain their stride. James Gunn's Superman sparked huge interest in the Man of Steel, and Marvel released two widely praised films, Thunderbolts and Fantastic Four. Well, they actually released 3 films in 2025, but I'm sure they'd rather you forget about Captain America: Brave New World. This movie had one of the most cursed productions in recent history, from the passing of William Hurt to the controversy over including Sabra, the writer's strike, and extensive reshoots. It was so bad that Variety wrote an article interviewing someone who worked on the production, and the title was, quote, "I think everyone knew this is not going to be a good film." Well, they were right. Captain America 4 is a confusing mess. The film, which only exists as a preamble for Sam Wilson's fight with the Red Hulk, is a fangless, boring political thriller. I know it's an unfair standard to set, asking toy commercials to discuss the current political and economic state of the world, but this film has nothing to say whatsoever. The movie also doesn't have anything to say about its main character. Most of the plot is a tepid retread of the arc from the Falcon and the Winter Soldier Disney Plus show. There is some development when it comes to how Wilson tries to help an older mentor who's unjustly incarcerated, but this film seems too afraid to recognize any forms of racism that are contributing to that conflict or people not accepting him as the new Captain America. It's another example of this movie playing it safer than it needed in an attempt to appease an audience who wasn't there. Number 8.
Hey Mom, there's a woman in the yard.
So there's this woman, and she's sitting in the yard. That's the premise of The Woman in the Yard. The movie is also a metaphor for grief and the stress of raising your kids as a single parent, I suppose. This trauma theme is doing a lot of heavy lifting for a movie that offers little tension or scares. This is a PG-13 horror movie, but it's hard to imagine anyone will be left scared by this film. More likely, they'll be a little depressed. The movie feels far more suited to being a short film, in my opinion. If this were, say, 10 minutes long, the heavy-handed symbolism and the ill-defined threat the titular woman in the yard poses wouldn't be as bothersome. There's also the fact that the film callously plays with heavy themes. You could easily read the film's message as saying that if you feel like you're a burden to your loved ones, you deserve to die, and relieve them of that, which is obviously terrible. I think this could have really worked as a slow-burn, psychological horror film. More than any other on the list, I wish I liked this movie more than I did. Number 7. It's weird now to see how mainstream the Five Nights at Freddy's franchise is.
But then there was The Bite of 87.
The Bite?
Yeah.
What Bite?
It's amazing.
It went from a single indie game to an entire franchise, with blockbuster films, a haunted house, and some questionable brand tie-in meals. But throughout it all, a hardcore group of fans is formed around Fazbear and Company. I mention this because Five Nights at Freddy's 2 is the ultimate fan service film. This movie has a completely incomprehensible plot. I've been following the FNAF series for years, and while I picked up on most of the story, the film is full of confusing character motivations and odd choices that make it hard to truly understand the plot. It feels like scenes are missing because characters teleport around and have weird and inconsistent characterization between scenes. Why is the main character, Mike, in one scene talking about dating Vanessa, and then in the next scene he's inexplicably angry at her? It's all very contrived. But anyway, the plot doesn't matter, because it's only there to string together Easter eggs for the hardcore fans, who, to the film's credit, really did show up and show out for this one. Admittedly, I wasn't the biggest fan of the first Freddy's movie. I found it to be a little too tame for even a kid's horror movie. This feels like more of the same, with a weaker plot and slightly more scares. A kid at my screening was terrified of the puppet and yelled during a jump scare, so I guess it passes the test there. This is a terrible movie, but at least I'm happy for the FNAF fans who have stuck with the franchise and got to enjoy this one. Number 6. For Megan 2.0, the other bot blockbuster of the year, I have less kind words to say. After the success and internet buzz of the original Megan movie, Blumhouse thought they had a killer IP on their hands. Then, the viral marketing began. They bought a Super Bowl ad. They re-released the original Megan with an AI-powered second screen experience, controversially encouraging phone use in movie theaters. There were many brand tie-in ads, and they also held a M3gan lookalike contest in New York. This all ended up being in service of a mediocre sequel that audiences almost entirely ignored. In a shockingly honest moment, Blumhouse CEO Jason Blum appeared on a podcast days after release, talking about how they miscalculated the popularity of their particular killer doll.
We all thought Megan was like Superman. We could do anything to her. We could change genres. We could put her in the summer. We could make her look different. We could turn her from a bad guy into a good guy.
In the sequel, M3gan gets her Judgment Day, becoming an anti-hero whose prime directive is keeping her kids safe like the T-800. This updated version of the franchise takes on a more comedic and action-oriented approach than the horror-centric 1.0 release. The film forgoes all the horror trappings for an uninspired, unfunny, and boring slog. The film feels like it only exists for people to make CapCut fan edits of Megan. M3gan 2 insists upon the audience that it's campy and fun, but you can't force that ironic enjoyment. I do have to give this film credit for an instrumental King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard needle drop during a car chase scene. I can't ignore my bias there. Number 5.
Chicken jockey!
A Minecraft movie is the first ever brain rot blockbuster, a movie only memorable for its memes and for causing theater freakouts. While I have the same taste in humor as a 6 or 7-year-old and find Chicken Jockey hilarious, this movie offers nothing between those meme scenes. All the main characters are flat or almost non-existent. There's really no story, and the movie hardly references the actual gameplay or mechanics of Minecraft at all. The opening scenes that take place in the real world are easily the best part of the film. The director, Jared Hess, also created Napoleon Dynamite, and is trying to replicate the humor and vibe of that film. He doesn't do it very successfully, but still, it's the only time this feels like an actual movie. Once we take the portal into the world of Minecraft, everything falls apart. The visual effects were impressive, but this is written like a Cocomelon video. Every once in a while, Jack Black hits a killer one-liner,
Flint and steel.
The nether.
Diamond armor.
Ender pearl. Crafting table.
Water bucket. Slime cube.
but between them, the movie's unbearable. I hope that when the sequel they're producing comes out, people don't give it as much free publicity. After all the theater freakout videos Minecraft spawned, they made another version of the film called Minecraft Block Party, playing into the joke where there were sing-along style captions for the meme moments of the film. I don't think anyone ever actually went to see it because there's only one video online of it. By acknowledging the memes and making a sequel, I feel like they're setting it up to fail like the second Megan, but realistically, there's no good in this world, and it's too big to fail at this point. Number 4. Kinda Pregnant is another Amy Schumer direct-to-Netflix comedy film that lacks any actual comedy. The premise revolves around Schumer faking a pregnancy after breaking up with her longtime boyfriend and trying to keep up the lie after finding a community of fellow pregnant women. Kinda Pregnant is an agonizing 98-minute watch. It constantly repeats the same 3 joke categories, being sexual jokes, gross-out humor, or Schumer endangering her fake child. All these punchlines are dead on arrival, and I didn't laugh a single time while watching this. I watched Kinda Pregnant back when it came out in February because there were no other new movies at the time, and I genuinely couldn't remember a single joke from the film. What I did remember was how they used $Million Baby, a truly grating song I'm glad doesn't get played anymore, way too early in the film, before she was even kinda pregnant. Come on. That's like a perfect needle drop for this movie. If you watched this and connected with it because of how it talks about the experience of being pregnant, I won't disparage you for that, but I wish for your sake that the movie was far less annoying. Number 3.
Who is the fairest of them all?
It takes quite a bit of hubris to remake Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Besides being a beloved film for generations and a beautiful piece of art, it's also one of the first ever feature-length animated movies. 2025's Snow White takes this classic film and pads out the runtime with pointless scenes and ugly special effects. The remake is a whole 20 minutes longer than the original, and the scenes they added leave little impression. The only positive change, and the one point of praise I will give the film, is that they added a new song for Rachel Zegler's Snow White to sing. She has an incredible voice, and her singing was the only thing that kept me from turning this off. A bulk of the new scenes added center around a second ensemble cast of misfit rebel characters. This change baffles me, because why would you want to add more characters to a film that already has 7 dwarves that you gotta keep track of? Unfortunately, the reason they were probably added is that the dwarves in this version are horrifying CGI abominations, and honestly, the less time spent with them the better. I don't want to get into the weeds of the inclusivity argument here, about whether or not they should have cast actors with dwarfism to fill these roles, because there's no clear-cut answer. What I do want to ask is, what's the point of making this live-action film if 90% of it is animated with CGI? Despite the valiant efforts of the VFX artist who made this, every set feels like a video game level Ziegler is awkwardly composited into. Maybe the appeal is that they can cast real-world celebrities to represent these characters alongside the photorealistic CGI. Because how else will we have gotten Gal Gadot's evil queen and her hilarious stiff-neck turn scene? It's truly insulting that a live-action remake of the first ever feature-length animated film is so ugly. Number 2.
I know, it's nuts. No offense.
Get it all the time.
Imagine if someone gave you $320 million to make a film. What story would you choose to tell with that seemingly endless amount of money? At $320 million, The Electric State is the most expensive production in Netflix's history, a fact that keeps being brought up in every article talking about the film because of how paradoxically terrible it is. The film was helmed by the Russo brothers, whose directorial ethos I would charitably describe as populist and uncharitably describe as money-obsessed.
Oscar, show me sadness.
Aw, look, he's got a schnauzer. I love schnauzers. And his name is Oscar. It's really cute, Oscar. Oh. All right, come on, box office.
The latter reading tracks with their frequent anti-art and pro-artificial intelligence statements. The filmmaking on display here is dismal. The Electric State is one of the ugliest looking films I've ever seen. It's a great disservice to the art of Simon Stålenhag, whose world and clever designs are brought to life in the muted, muddy palette of a Marvel Studios film. The adapted script of the Electric State book is also terrible. The Russos took a dark, futuristic tale and turned it into a corny, quip-filled endeavor, something more palatable to their philosophy of appealing to everyone. Leading the cast are Millie Bobby Brown and Chris Pratt. I'm convinced they were only put in the film to try and garner interest from Stranger Things and Marvel fans to check out this new geek property. The only good aspect of the entire film is how embarrassingly star-studded the robot voice cast is. This movie is just another piece of expensive content to pad out Netflix's streaming library. It's a product. And what do people talk about when evaluating a product and not a film? They talk about the price tag, because it's the only thing that matters. And let's talk about that $320 million. What if I told you that's not that much when it comes to a film's production budget? According to Wikipedia's list of the highest movie budgets, it's the 15th most expensive film of all time. Adjusted for inflation, it falls to a measly number 37. The budget is nothing new, but I think the backlash to this film and the general apathy around it is. So will the Russo brothers learn from releasing an expensive, widely reviled dud? I don't think so. Will the Hollywood system throw them in director's jail as they have for other filmmakers who messed up far less? Of course not. They're already signed on for the next Avengers. Number 1.
It's you! It's you!
Yeah.
2025's War of the Worlds is the worst movie of the year, but calling it a movie is definitely stretching the definition. From the moment I first watched the abysmal trailer for this film, I knew it would be the worst movie of the year. In case you haven't heard, Amazon's War of the Worlds transforms the nearly 130-year-old H.G. Wells novel into a screen life thriller starring Ice Cube. Cube gives quite possibly the best performance of the year as William Radford, a DHS intelligence agent who spends all day monitoring the situation, ignoring his adult son who has to tell him something really important, reminiscing about his dead wife, and harassing his daughter. For 90% of the film, Ice Cube is sitting in a chair. It's super exciting, cinematic stuff. Sometimes he even looks shocked. This film is full of absolutely hilarious moments.
Good morning, what's up?
Look, take a look at this. Any noise about it on your end?
Nope, I watch people, not weather.
But what dampens my enjoyment of the film is its product placement and insidiously stupid message about surveillance. The most obvious product placement is for Amazon. Even if the producers swear up and down it wasn't an advertisement, it sure looks and plays out like one. The entire climax of the film revolves around our protagonist ordering a USB stick from Amazon that will be delivered on a drone by delivery driver Roderick Heffley. One of the funniest details about that character is that he's always wearing his delivery driver hat, including in the photo we see of him at his child's baby shower. Back to the point, the awesome technology of Tesla's self-driving cars and the future of delivery drones from Amazon saved the day in War of the Worlds. Product placements that are directly in opposition to the film's flimsy message about data privacy. You see, it's the aliens in our government who want to eat all of our data, not these major companies that are working directly with the government in real life. I have to mention that this movie was actually filmed a few years back as sort of a pandemic bottle movie, only being released now. You could argue that the filmmakers were unaware of the hypocrisy of this message, but I think they would have to be willfully ignorant not to see the issue here. War of the Worlds is a genuine big tech propaganda film. I cannot in good conscience recommend watching this as a so good it's bad movie for that reason. There's nothing redeeming about this film. War of the Worlds is undoubtedly the worst movie of 2025. Thank you for watching.